What is up, guys? My name is Sean, and welcome to the How to Hero YouTube channel, where it's my job to awaken the hero that lives within you. There's a hero within all of us. Today I wanted to talk about spiritual ego. Not the sexiest topic, but it's a problem. In so much as things are problems, right? Problems are just things that we get to do to challenge ourselves to be better, right? At least that's how I like to think of it. So as we develop along our spiritual path, we tend to start to identify with different things about ourselves that maybe we're proud of. And maybe we have a really good reason to be proud of these things. And in most cases, we've made tremendous strides forward. We've really improved our lives. We've improved maybe our relationships, or we've improved just the way that we are. And being more true to ourselves, but usually in the process of doing that, we develop little identifications, little labels, and sort of the ego regains some of its foothold that it maybe lost in the previous battle, right? And it does it through tricky little ways, and so I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the different things to think about in regards to spiritual ego, and hopefully it'll help shift some perspective and maybe help recognize some spiritual ego within you. And now I say all of this without any judgment at all. The only reason I can really speak to it is because I've experienced it. If I haven't experienced something, I won't typically talk about it on the channel. So the reason I know about spiritual ego is because I have experienced it and continue to experience it. It continues to be something I need to worry about, especially as somebody who's like kind of public about their beliefs and sharing this type of information. Is something I need to really worry about and think about. Make sure I'm not being somehow not authentic, right? Not genuine, and somehow misplacing my goals or misplacing my what I'm trying to do. So it's something I have to think about a lot. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about is your origin story, especially if you're like a starseed, or when you first realize you're multidimensional, right? Like you may start to go, where did I come from? Where was my origin? What kind of experiences did I have at first? And then as you dive into that, you may go through a period of self-discovery. Maybe you'll go to a reader of some kind, or somebody will read your astrological chart and they'll let you know where you're from, or there's a bunch of different ways to do it. And now there's nothing wrong with doing this. Nothing wrong with it at all. The only thing that I'm suggesting here is that whenever you apply a label to yourself in any way, that's your ego, right? Just applying the label, is the ego. Identifying then further with that label builds strength in the ego. So it's, in order to speak in language, right, we do need to use labels. We need to label things. Otherwise, what are we talking about, right? So it's a real challenge. And this is one of the reasons I think that ego kind of has to stick around. It will stick around with us. Until, I don't think there's a way to really totally get rid of it. But anyways, that's a different topic. The ego will latch onto those labels. It's anything about identification, especially if it's usually on the spectrum. It'll be positive or negative identification with a label. Either I'm shit or I'm great, right? It's one of the two, typically. And so as you go into your origin stories, like maybe you find out you're a Pleiadian or something, and then you run around and you're like, Pleiadians are sweet, because they are, right? Pleiadians are cool. And now you think of yourself as this cool Pleiadian who loves to be extroverted and be the center of attention, but not in a cocky way, but just in a life of the party type way, life of the whatever, like front and center, sharing ideas, making people laugh, being the showboat kind of thing. And you might embrace that, and it might really resonate with you, and then next thing you know, you're like comparing Pleiadians to other starseeds, and you're like, Pleiadians are cooler than these ones, and so I'm cooler than these ones, and whatever, who cares? But point is, the ego will latch onto that stuff, latch onto it real good, and really make it, it just distracts you, right, from what the point of it all is. And the point is the mission. The point is the point is to heal yourself. And so the spiritual ego is a direct obstacle to healing yourself. It's like the second wave of attack from the ego, right? Not attack, but defense, really. It's like it's dying away, and then as these new concepts come in, it's like oh, and it grabs onto these other concepts, these other labels. And so it's something to be aware of, and just think about it within yourself, and think about how much you identify with these things. Like, it's one of the reasons that even though I do sometimes talk about being a starseed or whatever it is, I don't talk too much about my origins. I don't talk a lot about, my personal, I guess, path or journey too much. That might change, but it's something that I find difficult to talk about without stepping into that ego territory. And to be honest, it makes me uncomfortable, generally. Not that I'm uncomfortable sharing, just it makes me uncomfortable speaking about it. There's only a few people that really I've talked to about it. Anyway, so the next thing is that the path is the same for everybody, and it's equal. And that includes the dark path. Now, that's a tough thing to swallow for people. It takes some real kind of work, I guess, to understand unconditional love, and how unconditional love does not, it does not exclude people that have done bad things, right? And it's tough to wrap your head around. It can be. But also the path, like I said, is the same. So, and it's equal. We're all on just different parts of the same path, and even the dark and light path, they split. Like, right, you come up and then they split. I think I just punched my mic. I'm sorry about that. They split and then they kind of meet again. And so, it's important to realize that it's all neutral. It's all the same. We're all one. We're all on the same journey, just at different stages of the journey, right? So it's super important to remember that, especially when we talk about the sleeping people who are asleep or unconscious still, the people that are still, they haven't woken up, and don't seem to be there yet. Like, some people are starting to really wake, but they're stirring, right? That's what I call it. When they're kind of starting to wake up, they're stirring, but they haven't woken up yet. So the people that are still sleeping, like, we're not better than them just because we've kind of woken up. I talk about protecting your energy a lot, and I talk about that type of thing. And I think some people get the wrong idea. People think I'm saying avoid, or don't deal with people that are sleeping or unconscious or whatever. Sometimes that is the answer, but a lot of times you're with these people, you're around these people to be the light for them, to anchor the light for them, right? That's the purpose. That may be the purpose of why you're surrounded by people who don't seem to get it. They don't seem to get you. They don't seem to get what you're doing. They don't seem to really ask many questions about it, but they also seem to make a lot of assumptions about it, right? Typically, and a lot of times they'll not understand at all, but not really seem to make an effort either. And it can be really, really frustrating, right? But that doesn't mean you're better than them just because your consciousness is expanded, right? I can't remember who said it, but basically you can only operate at the level of consciousness that your consciousness is at, right? You're seeing things from a vaster perspective. And that doesn't mean that you're better. It just means that you've in your divine timing, opened your eyes a bit more, right? You're seeing more. And they're seeing less. And so they don't have the whole picture. They don't have the whole picture. It would be like, giving somebody shit for not knowing how to, I don't know, what am I talking about? Electricity or something. It would be like a layman talking to an electrician about electrician stuff. They don't know. They don't know what they're talking about. And you, as the electrician, you kind of know what you're saying, right? So the thing that's really frustrating, and that wouldn't happen in real life, I mean, too often, is where the layman argues with the specialist, right? That happens. It certainly happens. But, you don't see a lot of patients walk into their, surgeon and start telling the surgeon all the different things that the surgeon is wrong about, right? Like, I mean, it happens. And I'm not saying that, light workers or spiritual people are equivalent to surgeons or anything. I'm just trying to say that, like, an expanded awareness on either a topic or on life or whatever it is expanded awareness. And the person that does not have that expanded awareness cannot possibly, you can't converse at the same level. So your expectation should not be for them to grasp it all immediately. And what can happen is when we're around a bunch of people like that, we can not only feel like we're attacked or not listened to, but we can also feel like a resentment almost. Like because we care about them, right? We're frustrated for multiple reasons. We care about them, even if we don't know them. Most likely, we care, right? And if we do know them really well, then we care more. And so it's, we're typically doing this type of behavior out of love, but we need to remember that we're not better. We're not better, and it's hard. It's hard, especially if it's a challenging relationship that has a lot of history. You need to work through that history internally. You don't need to worry about involving the other person. Sometimes you do. Sometimes it's a good idea, but a lot of times it's just internal, right? You don't have to worry about other people, typically, when you're doing your work. You worry about yourself. Heal yourself. The next one I wanted to talk about was your psychic abilities and intuition. You tend to build these intuitive capabilities depending on like your clairs and what's kind of activating for you. I find it has to do a lot with your personality almost. Like for me, I'm an extrovert. I like talking and communicating. And so for me, my clair is like a clairsentience. It's like a clair or a claircognizance, clear knowing, clear feeling, type intuition. And it's because I'm more of like an intellectual, like I'm more in my mind than many. I don't mean I'm smarter than people. I'm just more in my mind. So it's more like I don't know. That's just where I do it. But if somebody's more like, I don't know, they're more attuned to like their ears, they'll be clairaudient or whatever. But as those abilities start to come in, you have to remember that you have a responsibility. There's a responsibility with that information that you're getting, that it could be considered psychic information, whatever you want to call it, intuition. Just because you have some sort of premonition of some kind does not mean you should just out and spout it out, right? You have a responsibility, and our spirit ego, or our spiritual ego can sometimes make us feel like, we are healers and we are psychics and we are this and that. So it is our role to jump in and involve ourselves in other people's lives when we have some sort of vision. We have to remember like the impact, especially if these people trust us, if we're in a place of authority or if we're in a place of we're offering services and they're paying for it or whatever. We have an obligation to not interfere in their path, for one. So you should never tell anybody what to do. The same way you don't want people telling you what to do, right? There's free will and we are sovereign. And so if you believe that, then all you should really do is make gentle suggestions based on what you've intuited, right? And you know, you don't want to freak people out either. So if you have some sort of vision of like a growth or something, you don't want to just be like, you have cancer. Like, I mean, you're, it's not good for them, right? It's not good for them. You may want to say, I'm not sure if this is something to worry about, but I would recommend maybe going to the doctor. If it's the right thing for them to do, they'll go to the doctor, right? I mean, you're not a doctor, typically. I mean, unless you are a doctor, in which case, you know, I don't know why you're watching me. But anyways, the next thing about the spiritual ego is that it sneaks up on you. It's very sneaky. It creeps in. It kind of knows it can't be as brash as before, maybe. I don't know. But it's most people I've talked to have found that it's sneaky. Like it, you know, because it's such a benevolent thing you're trying to put yourself into. You know, it's very selfless in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways, the ego turns it into a selfish type of endeavor. But it starts off very benevolent, very selfless, very just, you know, I want to learn more about the universe and I want to help people, that type of thing. And then things start to kind of change, and it becomes about showing people about how spiritual you are. Or, I'm more spiritual than thou, right? That type of thing. A lot of the stuff that like J.P. Sears talks about in his I love that guy. I love that guy. If I remember, I'll link it in the description because that dude is the best. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about is you dismantle it the same way as dismantling the regular ego. It's about noticing it. It's about noticing your the illusion, whatever the illusion is at the time. Like, so if you identify with this particular role, like I am a starseed, it's about noticing the egoic attachment to that identification, that label, and then remembering that that's not true, right? It is, you know, it's true, but it's not. It's an illusion. We are not that simple, right? It's not that simple for our label. Our labels that we have don't really work. And it's about like kind of looking at that, and especially when you see the behaviors, right? When you see like, so for example, let's say you're a vegan, right? This is a very typical one you'll see in the spiritual community. Let's say you're a vegan, and somebody else is not a vegan, and you believe in your mind and your truth and your heart that veganism is the way to go. I think veganism is a word, right? Yeah, probably. Anyway, and you believe veganism is the way to go. It's been shown pretty steadily that plants will, like primarily eating vegetables, fruits and vegetables, will increase your vibration, right? So that's, you know, there's merit there. Also, there is karmic or energetic residue, I like to say. I don't know if it's karmic or not, but energetic residue that's kind of icky to the body when you're consuming animals that were, you know, I think maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure if the source of the animals matters, but I've noticed sometimes when I eat meat, I don't feel great, and other times I'm okay. So I'm not sure, and I eat meat most of the time, so I'm not claiming I'm a vegan or anything like that. I'm not even vegetarian. I eat like a teenager. It's disgusting. It's one of the things that I got to work on, you know. Anyways, so you dismantle it by reviewing those behaviors where you see somebody that's not a vegan, and you're like, oh, they're not a vegan. Oh, and I don't even know what that was, but that was me not approving of their decision for their sovereign life, right? Like, no, we don't do that. We don't judge people. We don't know their path. We don't know anything about them. Even if we know lots about them, we still don't know nearly enough to make any judgments on their path. It doesn't matter what we know. We are not them, and we can't decide for them. And we can think in our heads, you know, vegan really is better. But like, if they ask you your opinion, sure, let them know. Let them have it. You know, if they want to know your opinion, boom, there it is. Or if you're just expressing your opinion and they come in and start arguing with you, I mean, in that case, I would just probably ignore it. But like, certainly go on your platforms, your social media, whatever, and talk about how you believe veganism is the way to go. Talk about it, do it, whatever. But don't approach another, or even internally, oh, that person's not a vegan. Shame, 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 shame. Even internally, that's negative vibration. You're pulling yourself down, and you're also sending little energetic bullets at that other person as well. Judgment bullets. I don't know what to call them, but really, for real, that's a real thing. Judgment bullets. Look it up. I doubt you'll find anything. Anyways, that's all I have for this. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've had problems with spiritual ego in the past, and maybe what you did, if there's some tactics I didn't think of or didn't put into the video. I'd love to hear them. I hope everybody's doing fantastically. I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, click the like button. If you want to subscribe and get notified, click that subscribe and the notification bell. I don't need to say this. Every YouTuber says this. I'll just, when I end videos from now on, I'm just gonna say, and like classic YouTube outro, and then we'll just close it after that. So classic YouTube outro, end scene.